Buenos dias, Gunners Collective TV. Back at it? You already know. Like two tortas and a Cadillac. That's the Badillac. Yeah, they back at it. Bye-ya, 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 ya. You already know. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. In a menudo style direct fashion, man. You guys see the thumbnail, so you know it's serious business. If there's a Theo on the thumbnail, it gets real, right? It gets real around these parts. Skip, man. My ultimate respects are paid towards Skip. It's just right off the top. You know, active, non-active, none of that matters. At the end of the day, man, this man is deserving of my respect, and he's got all that coming. First and foremost. Oh, Gunner, you're just scared, homie. You're scared, damn right. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to get my earlobe attached to this other earlobe, fuck around and tie me in and not be like that. No, but in some real shit, man, I got to pay ultimate homage and respect to someone who sets the precedent, man. The foundation, a real one in any sense of the word. You know, when it comes to this gang banging things, when it comes to being real in real life, as far as up north. Now, I know a lot of people don't respect his get down because of the way he pushes and some of the words he speaks. But at the end of the day, man, if you're from up north, Northern California, you understand this man to be that man. And that's it. Plain and simple, period. Quietly as it's kept. But before we get into the Skip thing, man, let's hit that like and subscribe button. Put your notification bells on all so that way you're directed in the dope direction of the dope content that I'm bringing, man. And menudo, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for all the support that I've been getting. The appreciation is realer than real. Realer than the real deal Holyfield with two ears. Now, was Skip right? That's a question that's being asked, man. You know, was he always right, man? You know, I have to say it's headed in that direction. As far as a question being given, there's an answer being given as well. And it's starting to look like, you know, his narrative and what he thought about the situation, the whole into hostilities was absolutely correctamundo, was real, right? Someone the caliber of Skip, you know, someone who has achieved his status through determination, you know, his stance, being real, being a true believer and committed to his cause, and making the ultimate sacrifice. Someone like that, man, when they speak, you know, you listen. Doesn't matter who you are. If you're living that gang life, if you're on the streets, real recognizes real, steel sharpens steel. When you see a real one in your presence or a real one speaking, you might want to listen to what he's got to say. Now, I know that there was a lot of individuals that weren't listening to what he had to say, you know, and in the end, at the end, you know, you see guys got indicted. You see guys are taking plea bargains, deals, headed towards the feds. Ooh-wee, ooh-wee. You know who's waiting on them. Now, with this situation, the end of hostilities, with what happened in Pelican Bay just the other day between North and South, you know, it's making Skip look like a mastermind, a genius. He's seen this one coming. You know, filters went out. People spoke on it, said that he delivered messages right off of TikTok. I don't know that to be true or false, man. I kind of stood away from that situation. You know, in the past, I involved myself in filters and situations. And then I realized as a grown man that I'm not no longer in that mix. I should no longer be pushing or rocking a narrative. I should no longer be instigating or aggravating the gente, the raza, the people. You know, whatever's going on is going to go on. But I will speak on certain situations that I feel need to be spoken on. And when it comes to this end of hostilities, it's looking like the end. It's looking like the end might be in the near future. You know, when you have the two main groups. Now, I know that there's a lot of other individuals, other organizations involved in this end of hostilities. It just wasn't norteños and sureños. It just wasn't big homies on each side. It definitely involves the whole population, the whole general population, black inmates, whites, yes, woods, right? It involved a lot of everybody, others as well. You know, everybody came to an understanding that the only way to stay up out those dungeons and to get those indeterminate shoes up off their shoulders was to conform to some type of understanding, some type of truce, and end to hostilities. Not necessarily a truce. People use the word truce all the time. Truce means, all right, you're good, I'm good, we're good, we're all good. It's not necessarily that. And end to hostilities means there's no ill will towards you guys. You guys do your program, we do ours. You focus on what you got going on, we focus on ours. Now, we have heard a lot of people coming out of prison talking about norteños and sureños were working hand in hand, playing handball together, eating comida together. You know, in some certain situations, I have even heard of them selling up. Now, I don't know any of that to be true because I wasn't the mosquito right there, nor the cucaracha under fucking the vato's foot. But at the same time, I could tell you it doesn't seem far-fetched. It doesn't seem fabricated. It seemed natural, all natural. It seemed real. So now, when this end of hostilities took place, there was a couple individuals that were representing up north that actually, or not even up north, but were representing their organization, which represents up north. And they decided to go all in on this end of hostilities. They decided that this was the best move for the raza. Now, I'm for uniting the raza. I always have been. I'm for, man, no one's better than the next man. I'm for, man, we all just get along. But at the end of the day, I understand that there's been a lot of blood spilled and there's been an invasion in the homeland of the North. So certain individuals are always going to feel the way they feel, just like there's certain Southsiders, certain Southerners that are going to feel the way they feel. When you've been involved in guerra, when you've been involved in hand-to-hand combat, weaponry, combat, real life, blood gets spilled, your homeboy gets whacked, pegadas are happening, removals, things of that nature. It's hard to just drop everything and let it go because another vato tells you to. It's hard to let what nature's instinct is. See, when you're instinctually about war, when you've been told, man, to fulfill, your stance of holding it down for your gente and your people and the protection of your people, and of course, social status of equality and things of that nature, you educate your mind, your body, your physical, so that way you're ready and prepared for invasions. You're prepared for sneak moves and dis moves and things of that nature. That's the way it is. That's the way it's always been. But with the end of hostilities, that brought a whole different side of things. That brought individuals working hand in hand, business being conducted on the yard. Individuals that necessarily wouldn't be on the yard for years and decades or hadn't been on the yard for decades were now able to roam free. We're now able, and as we speak, are able to roam free and get a fresh breath of air, get a taste of that sunlight. See what it is like on them Salinas Valley 4-yards. See what it is like on them high desert 4-yards. Corcoran, things of that nature, Pelican Bay. But of course, what's all good isn't always great. And it seems like a situation occurred the other day between North and South. And subsequently, I've heard that the Northerners did retaliate. I've heard on the South side that, it was Northerners that took flight first on a Sureño going to medical. Then I heard it was Northerners got their get backs. Then I heard it was, you're going to hear a lot of different stories. It seems like everyone's always going to push their people on the forefront. Well, we got off first. No, we got off first. Fact of the matter is, people got off, and that's where the trouble stems from. Now, getting back to Skip, this guy's a mad scientist and a genius, a very well respected genius. And I'm going to tell you why. When this situation went down to this end of hostilities, a faction of an organization was separated. Okay, there was individuals in the feds and there was individuals in the state, and they weren't seeing eye to eye at that time. There was a lot of people not knowing which way to lean, and that made it a very harsh environment for Norteños. That made it hard to function as a Norteño, not knowing if you're going to get whacked because you have a little bit of respect for this guy, or you fall up under this, ladder, or you fall up under this faction. So it made it hard to function as a Norteño within the prison system, behind them walls. What happens if you go to stay? I always ask the question, I'm non-functioning. So to me, man, it was kind of just like Spence, to my primos that are in there still functioning. Real talk, high desert, you know what it is, little prims, right? So I see individuals go in there and I would think to myself, well, what happens if he goes and does some state time, gets pulled as an insult, things of that nature, whatever it may be, however that goes, and functions. And then comes to the streets, gets caught with a burner, a piece, a pistol, and then ends up catching in a Fed case, right? Now he's functioning up under this group. Is his allegiance, is his heart right there with that when this is the same thing? That's a hard pill to swallow, man, to understand that you can get yourself in a crossfire or a bad situation just based on who you function with. When you're just functioning with leadership as you see it, just a cold game and a hard game. So I know it was harsh on active Norteños on the streets as well as behind them walls. And I feel for him, humps. I feel for him for reals. Now, Skip was never conforming to the end of hostilities. From everything that I've seen that man put out or that man say, respectfully, he's seen the old points of views, the old ways of thinking as the future for the Norteño movement. He's seen an invasion that we all got to see. We all spoke on it or talked about it once upon a time, the mid-90s when the Southern movement started to progress up north, when they started to move into Northern California. Now, there's a lot of Norteños that are going to say, hey, not in my city, not in my town. It never happened. We held it down. flags planted, things of that nature. But quietly as it's kept, the fact of the matter is, man, without disrespecting anyone, it's truth. It's truth. There's going to be a lot of Sureños in a lot of different towns in a theater near you. That's just how it was. Now, Sureños have always had the numbers. The Southerners have always been the bigger presence when it comes to the raza. But that doesn't mean the Norteños weren't holding their handshakes. That didn't mean that the Norteños weren't handling their business, because they were definitely known as a structured group to handle it. Ever since I was part of it and others were part of it, man, that was what was instilled in me to understand. That is why I did a lot of the things that I did for the cause, because I understood and I knew that being from Northern California, my land, these were my people to protect by all means necessary. Eventually, my story ended and a new chapter opened. But for a lot of those that still function and still conform to the realities of realness, man, I respect that. Anyways, the old philosophies is what I went by. The old leadership is what I was up under. I remember, the praise and the status of these guys, legendary, legends. Dubs likes to say legends when he's talking about certain groups, man. And I concur, legendary in what they've done, legends of the streets and legends of prison. It's hard to achieve that status. Not everyone is willing to make that ultimate sacrifice. Not everybody is willing to really be as real as it takes. I myself was not cut from that cloth. I myself functioned at a very high level, from a youngster, to a teenager, to of course a young adult, to an adult, and realized ultimately I was not willing to make that ultimate sacrifice unless it was for my family. I wasn't willing to make that sacrifice. I felt maybe I was selfish in thinking I made enough sacrifice. There's never enough, Holmes. It's never enough. And everything that you speak about and everything that you spoke about once you're no longer functioning is irrelevant. It's no longer pura. That's just it. But Skip is a different individual, a different way of wiggle. Okay, this man has been doing his thing for years. Some of the stories you hear about him are not far-fetched. They're legendary. He has always put the Norte and his group ahead of everything. And for that, I commend him, because someone who's a true believer, it doesn't matter if you believe in God, it doesn't matter if you believe in the devil, it doesn't matter if you believe in the North or the South. Anyone who is truly dedicated in the ways he is to his gente, you got to respect that. Now, his ways of thinking and the way I functioned was North versus South. Okay. Now, I never had really bad ill will towards the South, because to be honest to God with you and to be truthful, after doing time as a youngster in Southern California and realizing that gente was all the same and realizing, it wasn't that bad, man. We were all fucking brown. That always left a little bit of a difference in my chest, right? A little bit of difference in my heart. I had a little bit of love and respect for them. But I always knew business is business, and you separate business from personal. It's just the way you're taught, and that's the way it's supposed to be. So I understood that if doors popped, things cracked on the yard, where I stood, there was no questions to even be asked. That was it. I was with my gente and with my people. Now, Skip is a true believer in that same way of thinking, to be with his people. He's not only led by words, but led by actions. That is to be respected, okay? So when this end of hostilities took place between Northerners and Southerners, because basically, that's the individuals that are going to have to conform to the realities of a truce, Skip wasn't for that. He said right from the gate, this will never work. This is the rock to sleep. This is rockabye, baby. This right here is a way to manipulate people into thinking everything's all good and then a strike will happen. Did he foresee the future? One never knows, does one? Is this just a blip, something that happened? I don't think so. I think it's the first domino to fall, and then more will fall. Because when one person gets off, the next person retaliates, and they got to retaliate for the retaliation. Then the retaliation gets real, and it's a retaliation. It is a must where I'm from, and that's what happens. And meanwhile, in federal prison, Skip is sitting back saying, I told you guys so. Defend the homeland. Defend the gente and the people. You have lost your way. You have been led astray by individuals that had greedy and selfish intentions. Now, I don't know that to be true. I don't know if these Vatos were using greed or their selfish ways, or only trying to get, prosper and push for themselves and utilize the gente, the soldados, to do it and to get there, man. I can't speak on that, and I will never say that. But in a real fashion, not a derogatory fashion, I will say that maybe the the split between the movement, maybe the gente being undecided which way, who they were going to be loyal to, definitely made the fabric flimsy, made it a little bit thin, never watered down, respectfully, never on some sucker shit, but on some real shit. Anyone could see, even Ray Charles, blind ass, can turn over and see that the Norteño movement, man, was fractured by their own doings, right? By a couple of rogue individuals deciding that they were going to speak for the masses and they were going to take it one way. Now you have someone like Skip who says, hey, I'm right. I'm in a leadership role. I support the gente. I've always rocked. I've led by example. Where you at? You know, and people like to say, you know, speak on his business, say, oh, this is the way he's filtering out filters, whether it be on social media or however he does it, man. You know, I'm hip to the Skip, literally, right? And one thing I will say is, however that man conducts his business, that's his business at the end of the day. And, you know, them words are meant for certain individuals and not for everybody. So when I see it on TikTok, but best believe, man, I'm of an understanding that that is the only reason that's being put out there is because that individual, man, is true and firm in his beliefs. Doesn't give a fuck what other people think or other people say because he knows what's right from wrong. So now I ask myself, and a lot of you are out there asking yourself, was Skip ultimately right? Did he see the demise and the downfall of the end of hostilities before it happened? Well, he's a firm and true believer in what he said. A man that really strictly stands behind his words. And when he said, this is not what the purpose is, this is not what we intended to be, it wasn't to cause chaos and guerra and to bring the homeboys down. It wasn't to bring the Norteños down or to disrespect the Sul. What he was basically saying, in other words, man, is you will never, ever, ever, you know, have peace. There's been too much bloodshed. There's been too much guerra and war. You know, it's hard to maintain, you know, that type of semblance on a yard. It's hard to maintain that type of awareness on a yard between two groups who ultimately have a bitter taste in their mouth towards each other. There might be youngsters that get locked up that have never done time with Norteños, or Norteños that have never done time with Sureños. That's a very rare thing to say, you know, hey, we're going to let bygones be bygones, but it's not your right to let something bygone. The men who sacrificed and all the soldados that lost their lives behind them walls on both sides, you know, should have some say in it. They should be revered and thought of. You know, there's homeboys that I've had that have lost their lives at the hands of Sureños. And that doesn't make me hate the Sul, but that makes me understand that at any given time, homes, it could go down. It's just natural. It's natural instinct when it comes to Mexicanos. Now, I push peace. I push prosperity for all the gente, homes. But I speak for out here. In there, behind them walls, man, people like Skip and other individuals on the other side speak. You know, and their words should be adhered to, because I believe ultimately Skip was right. I believe that, you know, a couple individuals should have not led the gente astray. What happened in the meantime, you ask yourself? Well, let me tell you a few things that happened. You know, there was always a common understanding between the blacks and the Norteños, not an alliance, but sympathizers to the cause, a very worthiness to the cause, right? Where a lot of times, man, even myself locked up on the 4 yards, the 3 yards, we utilized, and I don't say utilize in a derogatory way. I mean, we used, or, you know, they assisted us to pass wheelas. They assisted us to pass weapon stock. They assisted us, you know, when we needed the help, man. And likewise, vice versa. You know, if we seen a brother, man, that needed something, here's a sopa. Sorry, I ain't got chicken on me. It's chile. But, you know what I mean? All love. It was always some type of love. There was always some type of, you know, hey, we got you, you got us. Never an alliance like, hey, it's 100% in stone, homes. But it was always, you know, hey, if we're there and we can help, we will, and vice versa. Now, there was discrepancies and little skirmishes and things that happened between blacks and browns on the north side. But at the end of the day, man, everybody understood and knew what it was. It was kind of something that was established on the streets that went on behind the walls. Now, in the meantime, with this end of hostilities, that broke that bond. That broke that. Now, I already knew for a long time that the Norteños had pushed away from the brothers, man, just based on certain situations, but not all the time. But this end of hostilities fractured that relationship, because now what you had was the common enemy, which is the black in the South. You already know the blacks in the South don't get along behind them walls, man. There's always something going down, right? And when the Northerners are actually assisting the Southerners, the blacks are like, okay, well, we can't fuck with you guys no more. Meanwhile, the whites who have always went at it with the Northerners are looking at the Southerners like, we don't know what, hey, what's up, Wood? Where we go, brother? So, you can see where that fractured a lot of relationships behind the walls. Without speaking on them politics right there, man, because I already said a little too much, more than I can or care to say. I will say that Skip, my ultimate respects to that guy. And I believe he was right in this situation. I believe he's seen the writings on the walls. And the truth of the matter is, to be actual and factual, I got love for down south. I got love for the people. And I'm sure Skip respects a lot of vatos that he did tiempo with from the other side. And I will say this, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. You can't change so much sangre that's crying out from them yards. It's hard to do that. When individuals utilize manpower and soldados, to get what they want, to put something in a spoon or to get some commissary or get a visita or get some fucking flow going in, some type of, making movidas on the yard, I understand that that's greed and selfish intentions. You talk about dropouts all the time. Vatos fall off. You vatos are selfish. Greedy, selfish, all you care about is yourself. Well, the same individuals that are utilizing the homies, that's the same thing. Now, Skip is not one of those. He doesn't utilize the gente, the raza. If anything, he fights tooth and nail for the betterment of the cause and the people. These are the type of leaders, quietly as is kept, that I would rock behind. I know I'm no longer part of that life. I'm not trying to portray being part of that life. I've stepped back and I care about my family more than you would think, right? I know what it encompasses, but at the end of the day, I will pay my respects to those forefathers that have set the foundation, because I am from Northern California no matter what, but I got love and respect for the Sur. So it's a fucked up situation for me, someone who's always been pushing unity right here on YouTube, to see it start to crumble before me. It seems like when I got on YouTube, the end of hostilities was going good, man. A lot of people were on YouTube, functioning together, talking, no disrespect. There wasn't capping or clowning. It was just a lot of love, man. And slowly but surely, I started to see, people creep in, gangbanging, starting to get online. A lot of people that should actually be functioning together and fucking with each other, disrespecting each other because there was no one else to disrespect, because they still thought they were active, right? It's weird. Anyways, when it comes to the Skip, the whole situation, I believe honestly, totally, the writing was on the wall. He was right. He was right. He said in the beginning, this will never work. Now I'm not going to sit here and say that the end of hostilities is over, because it could be just a bump in the road and real motherfuckers could work through whatever. But if you've done any time like I've done any time, man, this is just a domino effect. This is where it all starts. And it starts to get uglier and uglier. And Skip said, we must defend our lands. We must defend the invasion. You know what he meant, right? Now, as far as the Sur side, because I got a lot of love and respect for vatos from down south, man, I understand, man, with sheer numbers comes power. I understand with power, you can get drunk on power. But I understand also at the same time that them guys are smart enough to understand, that a relationship with the Northmen can be very profitable, can also be very, a great thing for the raza if you're a true believer in your culture. But at the end of the day, man, are they going to let old ways of thinking and dictate the program? I don't know, man. Again, I don't know who started this North versus South thing in Pelican Bay. Some people from up north are going to say the South started it. Some people from the South are going to say the North started it. Ultimately, man, it happened, and that's a fact. With that being said, man, respect for even using Skip Villanueva's name. I know that being on YouTube, there's a lot of gente that don't like their name to be used. But at the same time, I'm just paying homage and respects to a real one. And that's a fact. Now, for those of you that want to woof and say, Gunner, you're scared. And nah, I just know what time it is, homie. And with that being said, I hope that you move smooth with a purpose. Get everything that you want coming. And remember, at the end of the day, it's all about the struggle to strive and the strive to struggle. Whether you do it behind them walls or right here in front of computer screens. Zay bangs, you know what it is, gang gang. I'm going to continue to do my thing. Thumbs up or thumbs down. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive and struggle and struggle and strive for what I honestly true believe in. And that's all the raza coming together, man. Is this the end of hostilities? Skip says there never should have been one. I don't know. Bang, bang.